Okay, so I've had the Mark V Supra now for a little over 2 years and it's been a heap of fun. I've really enjoyed owning it, but it's got to the point where I'm either gonna modify it and lose my warranty or it's time to move it on. And to that end, I've sold the Supra and bought an R34 Nissan Skyline. Jeez, that sun's bright. Hey guys, it's Cam here. Welcome back to the Build Room. In this week's episode, we have a new arrival at the Build Room lot. So stick around and check it out. So yeah, I'm being blinded by the sun here, but here it is. Full disclosure, I've only just got this thing. It's pretty dirty, haven't had time to go around and clean it up, but it is a relatively stock 1998 R34 Nissan Skyline. Now you can see it's got a standard GTT front bumper. It's got some standard 17-inch GTT rims. It's also rocking the standard ride height, which is always a pleasure. If we move around to the rear, it has the amazing looking standard R34 rear end and tail lights. I'm really glad those haven't been converted. The only real mod is it does have a X-Force exhaust on it. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty stock. It is not, however, a GTT. So before you get too excited, this is a faker. It's actually an NA Auto GT, GT25, whatever they call them. No turbo, no third pedal, no fun at all. But we have plans to fix that, which I'll talk about further in the episode. The important thing is, for now, it is a two-door, which is the most important thing. It's an R34. It's got that classic R34 shape. If you don't know how to tell the difference between an R34, an R32 and an R33, you know, they put it right there on the number plate, so it can't be that hard. It's got the standard wing as well. And provided you don't look too closely, as I said, it's a pretty neat and tidy unit. The second you start to look closely, however, things start to fall apart a bit. First and foremost, this front end has at some point in its life been in a pretty decent front ender. The bonnet's been replaced, the fenders have been repainted, the bumper's been replaced, obviously with a GTT item, not the standard GT version. None of it's particularly neat in how it's been done. One of the headlights has been replaced on this side. That's actually, if you look closely in there, that's a xenon headlight, whereas the other one is the standard bulb. And generally speaking on this one, yeah, not a great job. There's a lot of orange peel on these guards and on the bonnet, and the bonnet has, which is common for people that really may not have a lot of experience in painting and go to paint a silver, it's got a lot of banding or tiger striping. Yeah, not sure how well it'll pick up, but basically there are areas where the metallic sits flat and the metallic sticks up, and so you get a sparkly shiny area and then a dull area and so on and so forth. Yeah, pretty common mistake for new players to have on metallic paint jobs. So yeah, the front end, definitely been in a front ender. I think that quarter there, that passenger side quarter, was taken out. I don't think there was too much structural damage behind that. It was just cosmetic. There's also a dent in the rear quarter, which is nothing too bad, obviously just a little car park dent or something. And the car itself has had a full respray all over it at some point in its life. If we have a look here, that might come out on camera, but there is a line there where the old paint and the new paint meet, and in places like down here in the boot, there is a masking line and things like that. So this was obviously resprayed all over at one point, and then at a later date, someone binned the front end, and it was pretty poorly fixed in my opinion. I don't want to hammer the people that repaired this car or built it before me. I don't know what their situation was, but it isn't great. It's highly noticeable. I mean, you can tell just the difference in the two colors of silver there between the guard and the door. I would imagine maybe the guards were damaged or they were bought off a different car that was a different color. There should have been a blend through here, and this should have been color matched better. The blue GT badges are a giveaway that it's not a GTT. On the GTT, those are red. Yeah, other than those things, you know, it's a pretty decent base from the exterior. And what's important to me was it's reasonable to drive around in this condition until I start a big project on this one. Onto the interior, it's a little bit of a different story. The interior, I gotta say, is actually pretty neat. There's no, ripped upholstery or big stains or anything like that. Disappointingly, some of the trim bits on the door cards here and the center console there have been painted silver, and again, the spray paint job is very poor. You might be able to see some bubbling around the buttons and things like that. That is definitely something I am going to remedy. I'm also going to fix that stereo situation there because that probably needs a double DIN unit. And also the wiring job is flaky, so the front speakers clip in and out. But the dash is pretty sweet, especially for an Australian car. There is a bubble there. You can see just where the normal pods would be. These don't have those triple gauge pods that a GTT would have, nor do they have the MFD that would be in a GTR. They just get a blank spot. But other than that, the dashboard's pretty good. The steering wheel is an auto steering wheel, so that's gonna have to be replaced at some point. It's got the Tiptronic controls there. Like I said, I'll fix the paint on the center console. This will go away and be replaced with something that is far more fun. The door cards on both sides are in good condition. I'm really happy with those. And the seats are in good condition in the front, and then in the back, also in pretty awesome condition here. And that is not surprising considering the amount of leg room you get in these cars. Not many people would be sitting back here, or at least not comfortably. Headlining's all good, no rips or stains. It doesn't seem to be dropping anywhere either. So yeah, overall, I'd say the interior is probably an 8 out of 10 in my book, so I'm not too unhappy with that at all. If we move through to the underbonnet area, we have 2.5 litres of NA Fury. This is the Neo engine, so it's got variable cam timing. They do normally have a nice plastic shroud here, but this one's been missing, so I'll be looking for one of those to replace it as well. It's a 6-cylinder engine. This one is pretty much standard. It does have some split fire coils. Someone's painted the rocker covers. They put a pod filter on and also some silicone hoses, which I absolutely hate, and they will be going. It's also missing the radiator fan shroud, which I would like to get because these fans do pull a lot of air, but having the shroud make sure that you're using the full width of the radiator. The heater core has been bypassed. You can see back here there's a silicone hose here, and that's actually blocking our view, but those are the 2 inlet pipes for the heater core, and they are suffering from the standard problem that R34s have of they're made out of plastic, they heat cycle, they get brittle, and then they crack and break. So it's not uncommon to see them bypassed. You do have to take out the AC to replace this, which will be a priority for me, getting that heater core replaced, and also getting AC, because I would imagine when this has been in its accident, the AC has discharged and it's never been recharged. So right now I have no heater core and I also have no air conditioning. And in a WA summer, air conditioning is pretty critical. Importantly, there isn't any rust in the strut towers that I can see just yet, which is a common area of rust for R34, something you want to check if you are buying one. But this one looks pretty good on both sides. Now the AC, I think this is the condenser, evaporator, I don't know, one of those parts. The radiator for the aircon, let's call it that, has some scoring marks and bits and pieces on it, which is again unsurprising considering it's been the front ender. There are some, look like makeshift support brackets here. I don't know whether these are, well, they don't look clean enough to be stock, so I would say behind them perhaps these brackets have been damaged, but nothing that's a really big deal. There is no mesh or any of the plastic that's in here that should be on the stock bumper, and it's also been trimmed, most likely to accommodate a large front mount intercooler from the turbo car that it came from. The indicators have also been tinted, which is another thing that I absolutely despise, and I'll be reverting those back to stock. So the immediate plan for this car is just to get it as close to stock as I can, so I can drive it around to and from work every day without being worried about being hassled by the local constabulary. So anyway, that's enough with the motor. Let's get this bonnet down and take her on the road. All right, the car is really loud. Gonna try and get through this. May have to pull the pin early on it though. All right, and there's the first thing. It's that classic Japanese market reverse beep. Isn't that sweet? Still in the car 25 years on. Most people remove them. Buckle up for safety. That sound just gets worse and worse the higher up in the rev range you go. And yeah, I don't really want to try and give you guys a full run through of the car with that noise in the background. So it's time to go back to the garage and do our first ever mod, and then we'll come back to the road. All right, so there's no nice way to put it. That X-Force exhaust is way too loud. I don't know if it's meant for a turbo car and having it on the NA is just a bad idea. I'm pretty sure it's only a catback, but it is cavernous and the drone is impossible to deal with. Now, the good thing is that that exhaust actually has a silencer from the factory that's available for it, but I didn't get it with the car, and those mufflers are too old now to order them from the factory. But what I did find is a cheap alternative on eBay. So I could get a generic, this is a 3.5 inch, I think, silencer. I'm hoping it fits well. All I've done is closed it up. You can see that there's some adjustment available in there. I've closed it up as much as possible, and I've also painted it black so that it doesn't stand out. It's normally this mild steel color, and they get them to bolt at the basically at the end of the exhaust. And it looks pretty naff, if I'm honest. You can really tell the silencer's in there, it draws your attention, it doesn't look good. So what I'm gonna do to the car now is to try and drill some holes that are further back on the tip of the muffler, and then we'll push this right back as far as we can, get it bolted up, and hopefully it'll be happy days from there on out. All right, so here we are, take two. The silencer is in, it's right at the back of that exhaust tip, so it looks pretty good. I have put on my JDM Leno t-shirt for good luck, so let's fire this bad boy up. Not bad at all. That's probably half as loud as it was at idle without the silencer, so yeah, calling it a win so far. Let's get out on the road and see what it's like there. All right, funnily enough, that silencer has not quietened down the reverse beeping at all. Don't know what's going on there. Want my money back, but let's give it a go. All right, that's not bad. Car still sounds like it's got an exhaust, but it doesn't sound like someone's got 6-inch household drain pipe and attached it to the back of the exhaust manifold. All right, so that was $3 again, and seriously, I would say half the volume. So yeah, I mean, it's still loud, it's still probably gonna get a little bit of attention, but it's not something I have to hang my head in shame over. The good thing is it's quiet enough now that I can just sort of wind up the windows and most of that noise is probably going to go away. Yeah, look, is it ideal? No. Is it manageable? Yes. And I don't really want to go messing with the exhaust on this thing in any major way, putting in extra mufflers or resonators or whatever, until we go to the next stage of this car's development. All right, now this is the point where almost instantly I regret having to put the windows up without having air conditioning. But anyway, let's get through this quick and I'll tell you what the car's like to drive. So if I had to rate the overall driving experience in it so far, it's eh. Look, I know it's an R34 and it's a JDM Legend and yada, 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 but at the end of the day, it's still a 25-year-old car. I mean, you can hear the diff whining on this thing behind me. I'm hoping the camera picks that up. That's one sort of illustration of the wear that you get on a car like this. It's an NA, so even with my foot down, I'm not getting a lot out of it. And like I said, the auto is not great. And while I'm at a set of lights here, the auto on this is pretty interesting. you can slot it over into Tiptronic mode from drive, and that will let you change gears, moving the gear lever back and forwards. And it also lights up a gear indicator on the dashboard. It does have steering wheel controls, but they're not active in that mode. There's actually another button that you have to press above the gear lever itself. It'll light up a steering wheel on the instrument cluster, and then you have full control to hold a gear change out and change up whenever you want. But I've already fallen prey to that a couple of times where I've forgotten to press the button, put it into Tiptronic mode, revving it out, go to change just before red line on the steering wheel controls, they do nothing and you just bounce the thing off limiter. Now, I don't really understand the reasoning for that. It seems to have just added complexity and added cost in terms of having an extra switch, lights on the dashboard, and some extra wiring. So I'm not sure why the Nissan engineers did it, but I'm sure they had their reasons at the time. It would have made more sense to me that if you wanted to disable the steering wheel controls, you just make it so unless the car is in that Tiptronic mode, the steering wheel controls don't work. Would have probably been a lot simpler from the factory. The auto though will hold a gear, so I'm just gonna change down to second here and then first, and then we're just gonna hold it. And that's 6.5, didn't want to change, and I can now leave it in second and let it drop all the way down in the RPM and then floor it, and it won't attempt to downshift. It just labors in second and pushes us back through the revs. So it's a controllable auto, which is a plus, but it is still 25-year-old technology, losing a lot of power with that torque converter. As I said, the noise of this thing when it is sort of spinning up to that point where the torque converter becomes active, it kind of just holds at revs like a CVT. It sounds pretty horrible. In terms of the suspension, it's not actually too bad. So it corners pretty flat, not as flat as say the Supra or another modern sportier car, but it's perfectly good in terms of inspiring that confidence. And if you're taking long bends with a bit of speed, it does feel pretty capable. Now, I don't know if this thing's got aftermarket suspension or anything. We haven't got to that point in looking at the car. I would certainly hope that at least the stock stuff has been replaced at least once, but who knows? We'll find that out in a future episode, I guess. In terms of brakes, now you got to remember that this is the Auto NA model, so it doesn't have the big brakes of the GTT or the GTR. But if I take it to a reasonable speed and hit the brakes in a straight line, oh, I can brake pretty hard there, and you know what? I had plenty of confidence there. It didn't pull to either side. It didn't shudder under braking or anything like that, so all good things really. Now, in terms of acceleration, it's not that impressive, obviously, but I'll just find a stretch in Mexico and we'll see how quickly we can get to 100. All right, rolling start. All right, and there we are. So yeah, nothing that impressive, but at the end of the day, that's not what I bought the car for. Right now, I'm driving a R34 Skyline, which I never thought I'd have the opportunity to own. Yes, this is a crappy Auto NA model, but it won't be for long. In terms of the feel of driving the car, if you're driving at 70 k's an hour, this doesn't feel any different to driving a sort of 400 horsepower GTT model in a manual. So yeah, this gets me to where I need to be for now. The interior itself, like I said, really nice place to be. Everything's close to hand. The bottom line is it feels like a driver's car. It just needs the engine and gearbox to go with it. And I wouldn't mind if it didn't look like a standard GT. With that in mind, let's jump back to the garage and we'll finish out the episode by going through what the plans are for this thing. Okay, so JDM Leno t-shirt obviously bringing me luck because that went pretty well, all things considered. Really happy with that exhaust being a lot quieter, so there's just a few things that I need to tidy up on that in some upcoming episodes, and she is going to be a great daily driver. But now the question is, what comes after that point? Now, that is a GTT faker, and I don't want to stray too far from the course, so what we're going to do with this thing is we are going to keep that faker life, fake it till you make it, and we are going to turn that thing into something that resembles a GTR. Now, part of doing that conversion is the fact that obviously I need to go through that front end and sort it out. Now, I did jack the car up and have a good look underneath it, and I gotta say, it looks amazing. Front chassis rails are still straight as an arrow, and all the undercoat's intact. All of the seams along the chassis rails are all nice and straight. There's no rust that I can see. Everything looks great. So, we have a really good foundation to start a conversion. And that conversion is going to mean we're going to be replacing our bonnet, our fenders, our bumper front and rear. We need new bonnet support, new bonnet latch, new bonnet hinges. There's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to happen, and I'm not too upset about having to spend that money and put those on because A, it's going to look $1 million, but also there is work that needs to be done to that anyway, and I don't want to have to deal with it. So yeah, we're gonna have a car that looks like a GTR on the outside at least. We're gonna spruce up the interior with a few small touches, and then we are gonna address that NA motor and that auto gearbox. I'm not gonna reveal the plan for that one yet because I'm still thinking about that, but if you do have suggestions, put them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe at the same time. Now, if you're new to the channel and you're here for the 34 stuff, don't worry, there will be plenty coming. But in the meantime, if you want to watch some cool stuff, we have a full Violet Crumble series on our R34 Celica here, and I'll also link to some other cool stuff down here. Other than that, I just want to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Build Room. Bye for now.